For this video, I'll be discussing to you how you will be writing your news articles. Basically, our coverage would be what is news, the elements of news, sources of news, kinds of news, structure of news, and tips for writing news. If you are a beginner trying to write a news article or would like to write a news article, you should watch out for the tips that I will be giving in this video. So you ask yourself, what is news? Basically, it's information about current events printed in newspapers or broadcasted by media. So any information that you find on newspapers or in the media that is providing you current information or current events is considered to be news. Another thing is that it gives the reader information that will have an impact on them in some way. Because as you read news articles, it influences the way you respond to certain things. Let's say, for example, you have read a news about the the candidacy, the winning of the new president in the Philippines. So you would be affected by this news article, and it would be influencing how you respond to certain situations. It's very common for us to think that what you don't know won't hurt you. So the same thing for reading news articles. What you don't know won't impact you or won't influence your way of thinking or your way of responding in certain things. Another one is that it flows from the most important to the least important, which means news articles are commonly written in an inverted pyramid structure, which means the first paragraph is the most important information, which is considered to be the lead, or it contains the WH answers to the WH questions and the H1H question. So it means that the most important are placed in the first part of the news article. What is news? It is recent information, of course. It's current events. It could be somebody or something that is interesting or something that is previously known. So all of these are characteristics of a news article. A news article must be recent and it must be current for it to be considered news. If it happened in the past, probably a day ago or 2 days ago, it could still be considered as news. But if it happened a long time ago, it could be considered as history. What are the elements of a news article? So first we have timeliness, proximity, impact, prominence, oddity, conflict, and human interest. We'll be discussing each of these elements. First is timeliness. Timeliness means that the news article is current, contains current information or current events. Again, as I've said, if it's something that is new or if it's just happening, it recently happened, it could be considered as news. But if you will be reading a news article that talks about how Lapu-Lapu killed Magellan in the context of the Philippines, you would be considering that as history. For this video, another thing that we'll be talking about is proximity. It pertains to how close you are to the source of the news. Here in the Philippines, we are not very much fond of reading news articles about the Ukraine-Russia war because we are not directly affected by this particular event. But commonly, what we have what we are being exposed to are news articles that talks about oil price hike, which are probably effects of the war, but the war itself, since it's not as close to where we are situated, we do not really receive much news articles about such situation. But in case we will be writing for a campus paper. Commonly, the news articles are about campus events, probably students winning a particular competition or a school program. But for example, in Manila, usually we have rallies or strikes, things like that, or somebody who has been killed, somebody who has been affected by some uh, some sort of situations that happen, or probably a fire that has been set out. Those things that are close to where we are the news articles that we commonly read. Proximity again pertains to how close you are to the source of the news. Next would be the impact of the news. When we talk about impact, it means that you are directly impacted or influenced by this news article. As I've said, we are not directly influenced by a war that is happening on other countries. That is why very few news articles are being produced in this light. But in our situation, we are directly influenced by, let's say, oil price hike, inflation, um, the increase of the prices of groceries and other basic needs, which could be side effects of the war. But again, as these are the things that directly influences or directly impacts the Filipino people, these are the things that we are being fed. These are the news articles that are being provided to us by the news writers. Another thing is prominence. When we talk about prominence, it means how famous or how important are these people that are part of the news article. Let's say, for example, um, I will be writing a news article about uh, a certain carpenter who saved a child. And that carpenter, whose name is not really known, is not a prominent person. So, usually, if I would be reading a news article about that carpenter, or about, let's say, I will be writing the name of the carpenter. For example, his name would be Victor, Victor de la Cruz. And I will be putting it in the headline, Victor de la Cruz saved a child. If I am the reader of that article, of course, I would not be hooked to reading the article because I don't know who Victor de la Cruz is. But let's say, for example, Manny Pacquiao saved a child. Of course, we would like to know how Manny Pacquiao, who is a prominent person or a famous person in the Philippines, saved a certain child. The prominence of the subjects, of the people involved in the news article, is also influencing how the article would be read or how much reads would be gained by this particular article. But let's say again, going back to the carpenter, no? If it's Victor de la Cruz who saved the child and nobody knows who Victor de la Cruz is, then probably nobody would be reading the news article. It would be useless, writing the news article if nobody will be reading that? Another element of a news story is oddity. Oddity means the queerness of a news story. It means the news story is providing us something that is different or uncommon. Usually, news stories with a higher degree of oddity increases the connection built to the readers. It's like more readers are being hooked upon reading odd or different or stories that contains a different subject. Another element of a news article is conflict. It is commonly one of the most important elements in a news article, and it is found in all sorts of news, such as sports. It could be about war, it could be crime, violence, it could also be internal disputes and other stories that involves probably a difference in opinion. Generally, news articles that contain or that has conflict involves other news values such as drama or oddity, and it provides an emotional impact to the reader. It is actually a factor that appeals to almost all of the readers. Many types of stories or news articles that has conflict, such as there would be an element that is struggle that the subject is struggling about. It could be some sort of man versus nature. It could be calamities, or it could also be um, probably a struggle between one person and another, like an individual against another uh, person, or probably a group or an organization. It could also be political issues. It could also be economic issues, such as wars, and it could also be about campaigns and strikes. Next is human interest. So, human interest is about a news that contains anything that catches the interest or captures the interest of people. It could be about pets, it could be about plants, it could be anything that could capture easily the interest of the readers. Basically, news writers who do human interest news are also somehow interested in this particular topic, which makes them think that it could be something that is interesting to other people. We have here essential qualities of a news. That is, a news must be accurate, it should contain facts, it should contain information that has been fact checked. Next is brevity, meaning it does not have to be long in order for you to provide all the necessary details needed by the readers for them to understand what the article is about. It is followed by clarity, which means that the words that you're going to use in your news article has to be simple enough and clear enough. It does not require highfalutin words to write a news article. Another one is objectivity. In a news article, you do not need to be providing your opinions about a certain issue or a certain information that has been shared. Being a news writer means that you must be objective, meaning you would be delivering the facts as is without any bias or without opinion coming from you as the writer. And lastly, it has to be factual. Factual means, again, it has to contain the correct and factual information that you have gathered from probably your research about the topic that you are writing. Another question would be where to find news. Where do we usually find a news article? So, news articles could be found in these following sources. It could be from a daily newspaper, news magazine, teen magazine, education journals, television, internet, and another thing would be opening your eyes and your ears, and you can already gather some news. Finally, we have here a quality or the qualities that a news writer must possess. So, a news writer must always be aware of his or her environment for her to write a good news article, and alert, of course. A news writer must always be alert because news happens quickly. Events commonly happen quickly. It's like at the blink of an eye, there could be something that happened or an event that could have happened, and you should not miss that. A news writer should also do or can do multitasking, primarily because as a news writer, you will be there to interview people, to write stories, to take photos sometimes. You must have a nose for news. You must not be afraid of the people, and you must be able to finish the article on time because news articles must always be timely, and you should finish as soon as possible all of these articles that are being provided to you. So that would be everything for this video. Check out for part 2.